my pleasure to be here before you today to give you an update on the housing market. As you know, anything that we do within community development is really a team effort. I'm proud to have the 1927 Yankees or the 2007 Red Sox of housing with me today, depending on which one you like. So Greta Harris, who's the president and CEO of the Better Housing Coalition, Danna Markland, who you guys know from HBAR, and Laura Lafayette from the Richmond Association of Realtors are all with me today and will share in this presentation. This really is intended to be conversational, so please, if you have any questions for us, ask them. We'll be kind of changing positions here throughout the presentation. I'll lead off the group with just some basic information relative to the housing inventory in Chesterfield County as of December of 2020. I'm not going to read this to you, but you can see we have a pretty robust housing inventory, about 140,000 units of various types throughout the county, still predominantly single-family housing, which has been the bread and butter of the county, really for the past 40 or 50 years. Relative to the pipeline, so the question is, well, how many units do we have remaining? I'm going to simplify this as much as I can. There are about 41,000 units that are zoned and in some sort of development stage within the county. Usually when I tell folks that, they go, gosh, that sure is a lot of zoned units. This next slide really puts that into a little more perspective. You can see that, so annually since 2017, we have issued approximately 3,000 new units per year in the county, and predominantly, again, single family, which you see in the purple, townhouses in kind of the orangish, brownish color, and then multifamily or apartments or condos in the green. So if you take 40,000, divide it by 3,000, roughly, that's 13 years worth of inventory. Not really a whole lot when you think about it holistically throughout the county. My guess is, realistically, you're probably ballparking between 10 and 15 years worth of inventory. And again, that's in all zone property. That does not include lots that have been recorded, lots that are ready for construction. That is the whole gamut of what we have throughout the county. And you'll see later on in the presentation how that could present some challenges to the county moving forward. I think Danna will touch on that a little bit. So now that we kind of have the baseline, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Greta Harris from the Better Housing Coalition. That's going to give you a nice story on what they have going on throughout the county and the region.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share with you today. The Better Housing Coalition is a 33-year-old nonprofit organization that's been working in the greater Richmond region during that period. And one of our tenets in our organization is that we believe where you live can change your life. And we've been able to see that time and time again with the families that we've had the honor of serving. At the beginning of, January of 2020, which seems like a lifetime ago now, the Partnership for Housing Affordability put out a study that was regionally crafted that said that we as a RVA region need 20,000 units of affordable housing to be able to meet the various housing needs across the socioeconomic spectrum. When people ask me all the time, who needs affordable housing? Well, we all do. It doesn't really matter what your income is. You need housing that's affordable to your household. And it goes from folks on the streets that need safe shelter to special needs populations like our seniors, which is a very much a growing population in the region, individuals with a variety of different disabilities, our subsidized housing households that are very low income, the working poor that disproportionately got impacted during the economic shutdown because of the global pandemic, the folks who are serving you great meals in all of our wonderful restaurants, or the microbrews, or taking care of your children, grandchildren, helping you to take care of your senior parents. And then moderate income households like your the emergency response personnel, first-year teachers, et cetera. So across the spectrum, we all need housing that's at an affordable price. And so we start looking at what it costs to live in our wonderful community. And these are last year's numbers, and while a lot of things slowed down during the global pandemic, the residential market absolutely did not. And so these prices are even higher today on what it takes to buy a home or to even rent an apartment. And you can see some of the incomes of critical essential workers that really make our community sing. Not everyone is going to have a high six-figure salary. We have a lot of people who work really hard every day to make the quality of life really good in our region. Just a little bit more about our organization. We really appreciate the partnership that we have had for getting close to 30 years with Chesterfield County, both on the elected official side as well as the administration. We have invested over $250 million into the region, yielding about 1,600 rental apartments in 17 different communities. We've done for-sale housing. I think that number is closer to 250 homes sold, and we've done some retail, including a commercial, including retail, community facilities, health clinics, and daycare centers. And all of that is to help modest income households have a better quality of life. For those of you who've been in the county for quite some time, if you remember Parkley Apartments, that's the upper picture right here. You sometimes have to be careful when somebody says something is too good to be true. We bought that property for $10 from HUD, and then have invested close to $60 million to turn Parkley Apartments into Winchester Greens, which is one of our premier properties that we have here in the region. Even though we worked remotely last year, like lots of other people, our pipeline got really robust, and we're currently working on about $150 million of development throughout the region that will yield over 1,000 new rental and homeownership opportunities for families. So just to quickly go through a couple of different projects that are in various stages. During the global pandemic of 2020, we opened our latest senior property off of the Jeff Davis corridor. Let's see, yeah, there we go. And we leased it up virtually to 60 seniors, which was challenging for our staff, but we got it done in less than 4 months. And it's 100% full. In fact, all of our senior properties, which we have about, I guess, close to 700 senior units, are all 100% full. We have no more inventory on that. We are looking to close by the end of the year Winchester Forest, which is a 170-unit new rental community off of Jeff Davis. This is a rendering of what that will look like. We're struggling, like lots of people, with increased construction costs right now, and which has created a gap. But we're working in partnership with the state and some other philanthropic sources to fill that, and are still on target to close by year end. We're super excited about the Colebrook property, which is about a half a mile south of the John Tyler Community College campus. This is an old Green Book motel site that has a lot of rich history. We just got tax credit allocations awarded a couple of weeks ago. This will be close to a $30 million investment on this part of the corridor that will honor the history of the Colebrook in the community center, and a legacy park that we are looking to create. And that's what this will look like once it's constructed, which probably won't close until about a year from now. We're also excited that we got a tax credit award for a property in Midlothian off of Genito Road, and this is in partnership with the Community Services Board. So not only will we be doing 60 family units here, a certain percentage of those apartments will be set aside for individuals with developmental needs, and will wrap around services for those households. And that's what this particular development will look like. We're not just doing work in Chesterfield County. We have, again, worked regionally in 4 localities currently. We also are looking to close by the end of the year for the last single block in the Jackson Ward community in the city of Richmond that is quickly gentrifying and will be one of the few affordable housing developments in this neighborhood. We're super excited to deliver that to the city. We're also working in Henrico County on a rezoning for a 10-acre parcel of land that we own that will be, I think this is about a $35 million development, 140 rental units, and then homeownership units there in the form of townhomes. And then we are working on 2 subdivisions, one in Church Hill in the city of Richmond in partnership with Eagle Construction that actually we signed the contracts and dirt should start moving hopefully on Monday for 36 for-sale houses. And then we just signed the contract with Richmond Redevelopment and Housing Authority, getting 30 acres to do a 122-unit subdivision in the Highland Park community of Richmond as well. So I'll end with this last picture. These guys look like little devils, but they live on one of our properties, but full of promise. If you were to look at statistics for young black men in America today, 3 would graduate from high school, 2 would be involved in the criminal justice system, 1 would not make it to age 25 because of a violent crime or incident, 2 would go to a 4-year college, and 1 would graduate in 4 years. We can and should do better as a society and as a community, and we think working in partnership with localities to be able to create quality places at an affordable price for families to thrive is what we're striving to do. And we just want to say thank you for your partnership, and we look forward to a brighter future of doing more of this in the county. Thank you so much, and I'm happy to answer questions, or we can have the other presentations either way you want to do it.
We're going to comment before you leave. But right now, I just say thank you to what you're doing. I was really impressed with the inventory you laid out, not only in Chesterfield County, but also the city of Richmond. I think that's so very important because housing is fundamental to the essence of a great community. And of course, it's one of the larger costs that a family incurs, and you're so right. And our goal is to have all 5 of them doing productive work, either in college or in trades or whatever they want to do in our community. So that's what we have to work toward. That's our goal, to get us to that point. I know how well it can be done. I was a young African-American one time as well, so I know the challenges they face and that I've faced in life, but thanks be to God, you know, I've risen from the poorest community probably in the country, in Gates County, where, and I could tell you stories about that as I shared yesterday in a former hearing about where I was born, and then by the grace of God to rise to be the chair of this Board of Supervisors, the first African-American to chair this board is nothing but remarkable. And so I applaud you for the work you're doing. And of course, keep up the great work. So I just had to say that because I think it's so very important, because the essence of a great community is how it treats all of its citizens so that they can all thrive and be the very best that God has intended them to be.
Couldn't agree with you more. And the one thing that I would just add to our organization, we develop just like any for-profit developer, but there are some noticeable differences. We hold on to our properties long-term. We aren't looking to flip it and make big bucks. In fact, I had an investor from New York to call me this morning trying to buy our affordable portfolio, and we said no, and we get asked that all the time. We also do our own self-management. So if there is a problem on a property, you can come to me or any one of our team members and we will address it because we work together to ensure accountability on all of our campuses. And the third thing is that we provide services to help ensure that all of our residents, if they need assistance, they can thrive and be contributing and participating citizens in our great region. And we help our seniors to age in place. We have career navigation services for our working adults. And we also just help the young people broaden their horizons by having cultural and educational enrichment services, including scholarships, in order to further their education.
I applaud you again. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thanks,
And let's
Mr.
also,
Holliday.
one thing I've always really tried to champion all my life is financial literacy. Is how to handle two things. Your money, one, that's financial literacy, and your time, which is how you use that time well and wisely. So, but thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Any other comments, board members? I know you want to comment on this wonderful report.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I have a question, actually, Greta.
Yes, Leslie.
How do you identify opportunities and properties? How is that best? I mean, I know some of it obviously has to do with the practicalities of, availability and things like that. But I'm just curious how all of that comes together as it works through.
Yeah.
Because, we sort of see it coming at a further stage along in the process.
Right. Well, we source opportunities in a variety of ways. In the case of the Horner property in Midlothian, we were contacted by a member of the board of the services board, because they needed housing for their population, and they wanted to see if we would partner with them. So that was one way. We sometimes work with staff of different jurisdictions, and if there is a pain point, case in point is Parkley Apartments was a pain point. Back in the day, 25 plus years ago, there were 1,000 911 calls to the county police department on that one property. So we were able to work in partnership with the jurisdiction to be able to take something that was a liability and turn it into an asset again. We work with brokers sometimes just to find out where there are opportunities. We have something working in the city right now where they have surplus land, which is very helpful in an environment where price points, land, utility hookups, material, and labor are all rising. It all goes against trying to keep things affordable. So we're open, and one of the biggest needs that we have as an organization is just finding developable parcels in order to bring our product throughout the region.
Well, and I guess that's kind of what led me to the question too, because I think sometimes we see these projects sort of centered in certain sections of the county or any counties or districts, and we recognize, I think, that every one of us throughout this county have affordable housing needs. And so they're interspersed in every jurisdiction, they're interspersed in every community in different ways. And so, just recognizing that, I was just curious how some of that comes to be, and I realize you're working with a limited pot of money and have to maximize that based upon all of the criteria you're saying, including probably the timing of certain project availability and the ability to go in and have parcels available that aren't as expensive or won't displace people while there's actually, that motivation to provide for them. But, I was just curious because I think we all are having very substantial conversations on a countywide basis about the importance of affordable housing. What that tag necessarily means, because it's so, in some respects, people don't really understand the full aspect of what affordable housing is, and it frightens some people in a way that, is really just unjustified. But, I'm just curious because I think that it's really important that we all recognize that there is need across the districts, and, how we just maximize those conversations in a way that brings everybody to a comfort level, too.
I couldn't agree with you more, and we would welcome the opportunity to do quality, service-enriched, affordable housing throughout all aspects of the region and throughout all areas of the county. To be honest with you, most of our developments are in emerging sections of each locality. As much as we would like to be in a community of opportunity, NIMBY, or not in my backyard, is very real, and we get pushback with the same falsehoods of if affordable housing comes in, we're going to bring down property values. Not true. It's been proven with studies. If affordable housing comes in, we're going to bring a criminal element with prostitution and drug dealing. Not true. And so we're fighting those misconceptions constantly. And again, I think every successful locality has housing options for citizens across the socioeconomic spectrum. And I think we just work in partnership to try to continue to address it with more development and preservation and good policies at the local jurisdictional level.
I'll be brief, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Harris, just want to say thank you for your group's work on Stigall Drive. I'm really excited about that project coming up, and I appreciate the opportunity to work with you all on that. A number of years ago, as a member of this committee on the future we have in the county, we did a report on poverty in the county and how to achieve financial independence. And I wanted to know, does your organization do any tracking in terms of what your measurements of success are in bringing people up out of poverty? I grew up in a trailer park in Gloucester County called Wycomico Village. And much like my colleague, Mr. Holland, I mean, poverty is kind of a great equalizer in a lot of ways. And so there's different experiences, to be sure, but some of them are very similar as it happens. So great things can happen. I just wondered if that's part of your organization's data tracking as you bring in residents and you evaluate how they're doing and how they move up. And I'm sure you have some success stories, and hopefully you share those. And that way, that helps us, I think, as a local government, connect with people about certain developments that are forthcoming through the zoning process, and we can share those stories with them and say, look, that you have the wrong impression.
Yeah. So we do track what happens with our residents. We have to do income verifications every year on everyone who lives on one of our campuses. And just going back to the Winchester Green story, when we inherited Parkley Apartments, the average household income was $10,000. It's really tough to live on $10,000 a year. And now, on average, the Winchester Greens is the epitome of a mixed income community. We have some households, mostly seniors, some that are still at $10,000, but we also have people with six-figure salaries, all living together. And on average, we're just under $30,000 a household income right now. Every year, we have people who don't renew their lease because they're able to save, because they're in an affordable apartment, to be able to buy a home. And we think that's a great thing. And so at some point in the future, I would love to be able to share more detailed data around the economic mobility that affordable housing gives households to be able to change the trajectory of their lives for the better.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys. And Dr. Casey, I forgot to say thank you for your support, too. All right. Yes. Okay, sorry. Okay, thanks.
I will have something after him, Mr. Chair.
Having many of your developments in my district.
Yes, sir.
I first want to say thank you to you and your team, because the citizens in that area, that even though they've had concerns about the density of the affordable housing in the area, your organization has done such a good job of managing your developments that they've been very supportive and come and spoken in favor of expansion of your projects. And I think that says a lot in an area where we have a lot of citizens that are concerned about the total density in their area, to still support your projects because of such a good job that you and your group do. So I just wanted to thank you for the service that you're giving to my community.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate, I'll take those compliments back to the team here. Thank you.
I too want to say thank you. As a young police officer, I actually used to patrol Parkley. And one of the first murder cases I worked was actually down there. And when you talk about giving someone a leg up, some of it starts about the environment that they actually live in. And the conditions back then in that particular housing product was very bad. And by doing what you did and rebuilding it brand new like you did, it raises up how people feel about the conditions that they're living in. And I think it's a great success story, and keep up the good work.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I want to thank you again and say that I knew Parkley Apartments. I used to give Holy Communion to a resident or two there many years ago through my church. So thank you for what you've done. It's remarkable. Keep up
Thanks.
the great work.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, thank you so much for having me here. I think this is, in fact, a very timely discussion to talk about the housing market here in Chesterfield County. So I appreciate the opportunity, and we were talking about maybe doing this on a regular basis, which I think would be great for us to just keep in touch with what's happening. We hear about it daily in the news right now, but really what it drills down to look like in Chesterfield County, and that's what we're going to talk about. So today's current market, we have reached a point where buyers are saying, I can no longer afford this. The average price of a home in Chesterfield County in the first quarter of 2021 was $404,000. Now, we at the Home Building Association of Richmond have an internal report among about 20 builders. 19 of those all build in Chesterfield County. And from April to May, there was a 15% increase in the rate of cancellations, meaning that people who signed contracts 6, 9, 12 months ago can no longer afford the home that they intended to move into this summer. Like, think about that for a moment. 15% of those people cannot afford the home that they could have afforded within the past year. So what is causing these skyrocketing costs? Late last spring, early summer, builders were taking on contracts, almost every contract, because they could, as demand was ramping up. If they had a price increase, it was nominal. They would offset that price increase with a nominal increase to the cost of the home, right? So fast forward to a year later, or 13, 14 months later, and prices have skyrocketed beyond the imagination of any builder. This should probably not come as a surprise to you. Lumber prices increased as much as 400% in a one-year period. Now, I know your first question is going to be, but lumber futures have dropped dramatically over the past couple of weeks, which they have. But that is for several reasons. One of those reasons is because builders have been forced to delay projects. They have been forced to stop writing new contracts because it's simply become unaffordable. They cannot produce a number for a home that they have confidence in. Suppliers and builders have also been stockpiling lumber as they could, so you have this shadow inventory in play. So as there was a decline in demand, they were also tapping into that stockpile. So that's why you're seeing lumber futures drop. Now let's remember that those prices are still 210% for lumber futures today than they were a year ago. OSB is still 380% more than it was a year ago. So material delays have become so severe. From the time a builder places an order to the time it is received, that can take as much as 9 months right now. So we're talking 36 weeks. You could have, under normal circumstances, built a semi-custom to a custom home, depending on the scope of the project, in that time frame. Now, this is not unique to just lumber. This is really every material that goes into the home. And you probably don't hear about the details of that, so I just want to highlight a few. So cold rolled steel, for example, which plays a big role in garage doors, exterior doors, your HVAC equipment, your appliances, that goes into your dishwashers, your washers, your dryers, your refrigerators. Those are all under significant delays. Now, while we manufacture much of that in the United States, some parts are manufactured in other countries, such as Mexico. So you manufacture the refrigerator in the United States. The ice maker is manufactured in Mexico, which had a harder hit with COVID, and you can't get the ice maker in, so the refrigerators sit and wait to go in the home. Of course, you have to have a place to make sure your food isn't perished in your home. The ice storm that knocked Texas and several other southern states off the grid, that had an impact on substances that are important to construction, such as resin. Resin is important to roofs, it's important to siding, it's important to your plumbing. When subcontractors talk about, we don't have a floor, we can't get flooring, they're actually talking about the resin that goes to hold together the chips in OSB. That resin is unavailable. So it's that subfloor that's unavailable. Never before has the building industry seen two recently new factors, not even in 2004, 2005, when we had such high demand. One of those would be allocation limits. So this is a volume management strategy among manufacturers. And they say to suppliers, you will receive X number of trucks next week. And the suppliers say, I have Y number of orders. And they say, too bad, we're sorry, we cannot deliver this to you. Now, what this causes is this new world of trading where people are paying unfathomable prices for a truckload of lumber, and they will do it. Not everyone will accept it, but they will offer it. These allocation limits are on items such as drywall, engineered wood. Let's also talk about SKU optimization. So as production declined, manufacturers had to say, we have to take our buffet of menu options and put that down to a limited menu, which of course produces limited quantities. So a roofing manufacturer that had 50 options may now have 25, 30, and of course it takes 36 weeks to come in. This is not a reflection of starts being down. This is all just a reflection of builders and buyers simply waiting. So what I have on the screen is the Wells Fargo Housing Market Index, which rates builder confidence on a scale of 0 to 100. Anything above 50 is positive. So when we started the year off in January 2020, the index read 75. In April, that plummeted to 30. And then it buoyed back by September to a reading that exceeded the 1998 record, which was 83. In November, it hit a never-before-seen number, 90. Now, these measure three indicators: present sales, future expectations of sales over the next 6 months, and buyer traffic. That reading hit its lowest point in the last 13 months to a reading of 81 this month in June. So what do all of these factors mean? It really means that if you bought a home in 15 months ago in Chesterfield County that cost $250,000, it is at a very minimum going to cost $300,000 for your Chesterfield resident buyer. How that equates to multifamily in the county, the reports that I'm getting is at a very minimum $20,000 more per unit. It's taking at least 90 days longer, and that is a best case scenario to construct a home. Builders are reducing sales. We have seen that since January. Builders are actually putting themselves in a self-induced coma, really, with sales because they cannot manage the volume and they cannot absorb the price volatility. And here's the kicker, which is really the area that we can work together on. So we were in a lot shortage prior to this great demand, which is now compounded by this great demand because no one in the industry expected we would see something like this. So let's take a look at the 5 most active communities in Chesterfield for the first quarter of 2021. No surprise on this list in the Q1 2021, there is an absence of a community with an average price in the 200,000s, yet there was in the first quarter of 2020. Comparing new and pre-owned home averages, so in the first quarter of 2021, it cost $76,000 more for a new home over a pre-owned home in Chesterfield County. So here's some good news, because you probably need it. So this chart, where you see those zeros, that is an indicator of a newly developed community offering sales in 2020. 6 out of those 9 communities are townhomes. One of them is a quad product out of those 6. which are generally the more affordable, lower priced inventory options. So Chesterfield County is doing a great job of shifting inventory to offer a more diverse product base. I think that definitely needs to be noted. Here's the bad news. Take a look at this slide for a moment and see if you notice what's on here that stands out. Look at Chesterfield County. Just letting it absorb. Chesterfield County posted the only decline in lot closings in the region, comparing first quarters of 2020 and 2021. This is evidence of what I have heard from every single builder. They are running out of lots in Chesterfield County. Developers are running out of lots to replenish that inventory. This is our biggest challenge, and we're already starting to see it hit our market in real numbers. So I should have switched the sequence of these slides, but in a little bit of good news, the average lot price did decline by $1,700, and that's because of the change in product mix. But let's talk about what the need is. A March 2021 analysis by Market Graphics, which is a nationally renowned new home market research company, estimates Chesterfield County will need this 14,504 lots over the next 5 years. That is 242 lots per month. So 242 lots as part of a demand that can be absorbed and will be, in fact, used if available. Earlier, Jesse spoke to a 20-year pipeline of 18,700 lots. Spread over 20 years is 78 lots per month. That means we have a deficit over the next 5 years of 164 lots. So now that assumes that all 18,700 lots in the queue are viable for building. And that is simply unrealistic for a number of factors. Probably the biggest one would be infrastructure barriers to entry. Some of the lots are outdated with their zoning and need to be have a modern application applied. Others are simply not suitable to build on. So what that number cuts down to, I'm not sure exactly, but it could be a sizable portion. So how do we solve this? We have to work together to really rezone inventory to deliver to Chesterfield residents. I actually called the chairman of Market Graphics this morning. I spoke with him yesterday to be sure I was understanding this correctly. And I asked him, so you're telling me these lots will be absorbed if they are offered? This is the demand. What happens if we do not have this available? And he said, your costs will escalate. They will drive up. Chesterfield will become such a competitive market. And then what do we see? Will we continue to see these cancellations because families cannot afford these prices? Material costs are out of our control, but what we can control are the finances and getting lots on the ground for a market that is in balance. So this is a problem we have been talking about internally for quite some time, but I think under the circumstances of the demand we have seen over the last year, it is a direct imperative for us to work together on this. So now let's also keep in mind that single-family neighborhoods intentionally built for rent are really picking up speed to be a viable option for alternatives to apartments and for sale townhomes. This is something that we have a handful of builders who know the Chesterfield market, who have worked with you before, who are interested in deploying and doing it well. I think this is a conversation that we should seriously have as a product mix option. One of the reasons that this is becoming so popular is because of the sheer fact that people cannot afford a down payment on a home. And of course, lending restrictions had tightened. So your opportunity, even for buyers who seem obvious, may not be there, but they want a home for their family. This is a great option to present to them that we can do with the people who we know and trust here in Chesterfield County. I think that covers very high-level update. I ran through that very quickly. What questions can I answer?
You did exceptionally well. Questions, comments, board members?
Mr. Chair, so I had the benefit to hear Dana at the last chamber luncheon as well with all this information. I guess my question to you, Dana, is, you know, from our citizens' perspective, it looks like we are continuing to approve projects and move forward with development that they're seeing in many of our districts, you know, what at least from their perspective looks like an accelerated rate and things. And it seems like many of the developers and the builders that we have relationships with know and have a great understanding of Chesterfield and where we're going, and work very closely aligned with our planning department, and I don't think they come in with unrealistic expectations of where we're going. In other words, the question becomes, like, how do we possibly put more lots on the ground when it seems like these relationships have worked and are moving forward in a fashion that, at least in many of our districts, is, you know, seems to be hitting the holes of where we see opportunities to exist. You know, I'm kind of like stymied as to what we do better or what we can do better on our end to make this, you know, to expand this, you know, this number of available lots.
Well, I think a part of it is educating the constituency that, I mean, a growing and thriving community is building more homes, and Chesterfield County is a great place to live. So of course people want to move here, but we can do so purposefully and in the right measure. There are lots zoned that probably no longer apply. That would be the low-hanging fruit to go ahead and start, and so we're not expanding that pool per se initially. But I think we have to look at strategic ways of growing the community where we're not, we are otherwise, you can't grow and thrive unless you do provide this housing, and it will price so many out of this market, so many that they're not going to be able to buy their next home. They're not going to be able to move into a home that is their next best opportunity. I mean, they will be essentially stuck unless they want to move somewhere else. So it becomes an economics question and a quality of life question. We, by working together, can provide a better quality of life and better economics for households.
Mr. Chairman? Yes. Dana, good to see you. A couple things. So certainly, you know, speaking in Clover Hill, fairly built out district as it is, we've been trying to do things like the Rockwood Special Area Plan and focus on redeveloping, you know, maybe some strip areas that were once very productive and now not so much. That's certainly been something, and I think we've looked at performance agreements in some cases and trying to throw incentives out there. I just want to say that the channel is wide open on this topic, and certainly want to commend your organization on your continued work on this topic. With that said, I will also tell you that I've got some very limited areas left that you would call green space. And there is certainly pressure on those areas, residential pressure, that I have conversations with folks who are interested in building on some of these areas. But I'm also have economic development over here, and they say, you know, it's good. It's good for you to put aside some land for some light industrial. It's good for you to put aside some land for some light commercial here and there. And so I will tell you that I'm seeing that tension, at least in my district. Wanted to ask one question about this rental neighborhood product that you mentioned at the very tail end. What is the national experience with this product as it relates to management? And I asked that question for a reason. Certainly there are a range of management companies in any line of work, and certainly as it relates to apartments or whatever the unit might be. And some of them are better than others, let's say. They do a better job. And when we have an apartment complex that's run very well, it's great. and everybody benefits from that. When we have poor management, everybody, to some extent, suffers from that. One of my concerns about this product is the management and sort of a lack of national experience that I've been able to find. And so to the extent that you can help me, I'd like to understand more what the risks are here for a locality to look at that type of product and in a serious fashion and say, this is what I want in my district. Because I think that would be, it's just a little bit concerning that it's a little bit of a newer product. And so I want to keep an open mind. But if you, if you have any data or others do, I would like to hear it and see it.
Well, and I would say that the Richmond market is so different from what we see nationally. So sometimes it's not an apples to apples comparison, because one of the things we love about this building community here is you have many more homegrown businesses. I mean, some of your largest builders also live here. They live in Chesterfield County. I could name a handful of them off the top of my head. There are the larger part of your top 10 builders live in this region, the presidents, the owners. So they take it to heart, and they also know that their brand, their reputation is on the line if they were not to produce and manage a for-rent townhome neighborhood appropriately. So I think they will take it much more to heart than what you would see nationally. So I don't think that it applies. These are very sophisticated and intelligent people. While I don't have an answer on the certain product they will use, I'll make that a very strategic point of discussion to talk about how we ease these concerns and what that approach looks like.
Excellent. Ms. Dean?
With that type of product, would you be able to put an HOA into place? It would give a little bit more comfort that it's going to be run properly, because the owner of the property would still be, even though it's their renter, the owner would be under the guidelines of the HOA.
That's a good question. I don't know the answer, but I can add that to the agenda.
And I've also seen a product recently that I'm excited about for my district. It's a 1/1 unit. It's about 900 square feet over 900 square feet that I think is able to be done on about 5 acres to make it viable. And I'm really excited. I think that's going to be a good opportunity for people in my community, in my district, for affordable housing.
Thank you. Mr. Carroll?
So obviously, I have the most land. And just with 52% of the county being the Matoka district. We are aware of what you pointed out in reference to the market and what's happening with the housing, especially related to the construction materials and cost. And one of the other things that's driving that problem is a lack of workers to actually complete the jobs. I mean,
Yes.
we've had developers told me that, look, I've got house contracts that are sitting here, but I don't have anybody to swing a hammer. And so that's some of the delay in that as well. I do understand that, part of the balance for us, and I'm saying this for the people at home that are watching, part of the balance that the county has always had to face is also, besides building these houses, we also have to provide the infrastructure for it. We have to provide the fire stations, the police stations, the schools, which is the biggest issue. We're working towards that. I think we've made great strides, certainly in the schools, and I think we're going to be looking at a bond referendum next year to and help with that. I mean, but we have schools that are at capacity. When the Mosley Elementary School opens up, it's going to be at capacity, in Mag Green. So we already know we need a middle school and another elementary school out there. So we're trying to balance this to get new lots. I mean, I think you probably see that we approved a subdivision down off of Winter Park Road this past year, which will tie into Harper's Mill and actually put a nice throughway through from Winter Park Road west through Harper's Mill, and it'll be a good throughway for the county. But it is a challenge for us also to balance all of the infrastructure. I mean, we're going to spend $25 million to fix flooding on Otterdale Road now, which is sorely needed for the fantastic houses that are being built out there, but every time it rains, they get flooded in there. But they are, I don't know if you've been out there, but Westerly and Summer Lake, great products. So it doesn't fall on deaf ears that we need additional housing lots, and certainly I know that there's some other parts of Matoka, for example, down on, I'll just give you an example. Go down to Lake Cheston and drive up and down the lake. There's so much land that's butted up, and I know one portion of that was at one time was proposed to be a neighborhood. So there's a lot of opportunity there. But we also have to be mindful of the infrastructure we need to provide for that too. So, but yeah, this is a good product. Actually, someone has actually shared that with me. It looks very interesting, so I'm interested in more to know more about that. So, you got my number. Call me. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you so much for the excellent presentation. You've really given us a lot to think about. More importantly, what we can do constructively going forward. And I appreciate, I'm glad Chris asked, and of course, comment on the for rent. I'm interested in that as well. Also, I'm asking with this that we look at this issue more coming up in the next few months or next year. I'm also asking Dr. Casey to look at the zoning updates we need to do. I know we're doing our zoning updates as it is, our plan department, but I'm asking him to put your perspective on that as well and see what we can do. Because in the essence of what we have to do is drive down costs because it has a ramification that's beyond in terms of assessments, in terms of taxes. It just drives up costs, and we want to drive costs down where we can and certainly make the community affordable so that everyone who wants to live here can live here. So those are great goals. So thank you for that, and we look forward to working with you more so regarding your efforts in making houses affordable. So that's a thing we are tasking Dr. Case to do today and report back to this board on that ongoingly. This is a constant issue we need to address. But thank you so very much for that excellent presentation.
We're interested, actually, from your perspective, on things you think we can do to drive down cost. It's part of the discussion we need to have.
Yes, yes. Let us know.
We are working on that right now. One element of that is building more efficiencies into the technical review committee process, just because time does cost money and it adds to every project. So that is low-hanging fruit that we're working on together, and we appreciate right now.
Yeah, we'll do it together. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman.
Welcome back. It's good to see you again.
It's always good to be home.
Yes.
And, I've always wanted to bat cleanup for the Red Sox, so this is, thank you, Jesse. I'm going to go home and tell my son that forever now, after I will be known as Big Poppy. So, thank you. So I would never stand before this board and not say thank you from the Partnership for Housing Affordability and also from the Maggie Walker Community Land Trust. You all have generously invested in both of those organizations, so thank you very much. But this afternoon, I am here in my capacity as CEO of CVRMLS and the Richmond Association of Realtors, and I'm just going to give you a market update. And I think as many folks have reflected this afternoon, the market is fairly agnostic when it comes to the hopes, dreams, and needs of people. And that's the challenge that we confront today. You all, I will say that I'd rather stand here in 2021 than in 2008. Right? So we're always going to have challenges, but there are better challenges than others. So I would rather stand here, and as Danna said, the quality of life in Chesterfield drives people's interest in being residents of Chesterfield, and that's a much better challenge to confront than the recession that we lived through not too many years ago. So we're taking a look here in this slide of May of 2021 as compared to May of 2020. I really tend to look at the year-to-date numbers, and even though 2020 we experienced pandemic, we experienced a number of other challenges locally, nationally, 2020 was the best year in real estate of this century, and we are on pace in 2021, despite the lack of inventory, to outpace that. And Chesterfield is leading the way in terms of our residential sales. Chesterfield always leads the way. That's not anything new. Whether you all like it or not, you are the leading bedroom community for the region. That has its pluses, and I'm sure it has its challenges. But as you can see, inventory is down. Our pending sales are up, closed sales are up, and they're up significantly. Now look at days on market. We have cut days in market in half. And so while I know you cannot talk to a realtor who does not complain about lack of inventory, but it's not just the lack of inventory, it's the pace of absorption, right? House goes on the market, house sells. And I think that exacerbates the feeling that we are lacking in inventory. But then again, look at the challenge when it comes to the price of housing and the increase by 17%. So it's just, simple economics, and I certainly didn't major in that, but when your demand outstrips your supply, you're going to see costs go up. That's obviously not a sustainable pace. Obviously, when the prices go up like that, people's equity goes up, but day after day, more and more people are being priced out of the opportunity to own a home. And then look at the percentage of original list price received. What this is really telling you is that if you want to buy a house in Chesterfield today, you need to you're going to likely come with an offer over the asking price. And you all have heard about it, seen it, multiple offers, people waiving inspections, waiving appraisals. People are, paying $50,000 over and sometimes more, getting 30 contracts on a house. It's just a very challenging time out there, particularly for buyers who are looking for that first home ownership opportunity. And then, as you can see, we have less than a month's supply of inventory. I think a balanced market, people used to say 6 months, I really think it's around 4 months, but we're nowhere near that. The condo market is quite similar. When you look at the percentages, keep in mind that we're looking at fewer units, so the percentages can look more significant than they are. But again, pending sales are up, closed sales are up, days on market are down. And even when you look at the average sale price now of about $285,000, we used to think of the condo market or the townhome market as our part of our affordability solution. That's a real challenge at these prices. And again, lack of inventory driving up the price of the housing. Here is just another graphic that we provide, and we provide these to your administrator on a monthly basis, and always welcome to ask us for any of the data that we're collecting. When we're comparing Chesterfield to our entire footprint, which is 16 jurisdictions, so Richmond Metro and Tri-Cities, and you can see that your sales price is outpacing the region overall. That is not a new trend. It's just the rate of growth in the cost of housing. Here I thought you'd like to see where you all stand compared to the other jurisdictions. When I show this slide in Henrico, Tommy Brandon always asks me why you're winning. I'm like, it's not a contest. So you can take a look and see, again, as I said, Chesterfield is always kind of the leader in terms of productivity. You can look at your pendings compared to the others, your solds for 2021, and you can see your growth is sitting at 19%, and your nearest competitor, or not competitor, it's not a game, not a contest, your nearest jurisdiction is at 11%. And then, Hanover always typically has the highest average sale price, and that typically is the case because it just costs more to build in Hanover, and there's usually a little bit more land attached to their dwellings. I wanted to tease out on this issue of affordability. So we took the average sale price, we took a 30-year conventional at the current interest rate, and we said, okay, so what's the estimated monthly payment? Just coming in under $2,000. Now, in terms of gross income needed, we're looking at around $52,000. Now, I don't get to live on my gross. Apparently some billionaires in our country do, but I don't. So the gross is, you know, that is like the bare minimum. I think a fair number would probably be 60,000. And again, this is a household that has absolutely no other debt. Another way to look at this, and this is from the National Housing Coalition, Paycheck to Paycheck. And this is a really interesting tool. You can go online and use this tool any way you want. But what you're looking at here is, this is the MSA for the region. So obviously it's broader than Chesterfield, it's broader than metropolitan Richmond, it's the full MSA. So if you were putting 10% down, you'd need an income of around 62,000, almost 63. If you're only putting 3% down, you'd need almost 67,000. And then I just picked some occupations and what they, again, the average salary within the MSA. And I picked occupations, a number of which we all have heard are our essential workers. Now, again, in this tool, you could pick 80 different occupations. So again, I encourage you to go to the National Housing Conference, Paycheck to Paycheck. But when you look at many of our essential workers, many of folks who would be employed by Chesterfield, and again, I'm not saying these are Chesterfield salaries, I'm simply saying that it is very hard on a single income, and sometimes even dual incomes, to be able to afford home ownership. And home ownership is not for everybody at all points in their lives. But unless we have an adequate supply of affordable housing, people don't have that opportunity to save for home ownership. And to your point, Mr. Holland, that you made earlier, without stable shelter, everything else falls apart. When children don't know where they're going to lie their heads at night, how do we expect them to perform in school? When adults don't know how they're going to make the next rent payment or mortgage payment, and they're working 3 jobs, how are they meeting the needs of their children, and or how are they really showing up and being their most productive self? And so housing is really the foundation of a community of opportunity. I think everybody in this room would agree that we want every child born in this community today to have a chance at thriving. And without stable shelter, without affordable, sustainable shelter, that opportunity is desperately lessened. And so I'm going to leave us on a note of hope. I believe that when we have the will, we can find a way and we can find the means. And I believe that collectively, we are at a point in this community that I believe we care more about this issue than I've ever seen. And we just have to work on strategies like accessory dwelling unit ordinances, like incentivizing development, to make sure that we have a range of household opportunities for the needs across the county. And as a native of the county, nothing makes me prouder than when I see Chesterfield being innovative and seeking to meet the needs of all of their citizens. So thank you for the opportunity. Happy to answer any questions.
Excellent. Any comments or questions, board members?
Thank you. Excellent presentation. I have to note jokingly that you have accidentally news reporter under essential personnel. And
Well, I was
just
going to make
have
a joke about
take
that.
a jab at the press in the back. So
I was going to make a joke about that, so let the record show that you're more courageous than I am. Yeah.
scratch that from the record, please. Laura, thank you so much for this. And this is, I think this right here, this slide is the most important slide I've seen because it really does get to the people. It's the people in our community who we're not reaching with the current housing options that we have. And so I think, for at least, I think what you're hearing from our board is everything's on the table, and we're open, and we want to continue to have conversations and work to be that innovative county that wins these NACO and VACO awards every year in this area as well. And so I just want to say thank you for your work. It means so much to not only the people in this county, but also people in this region. Thank you.
Mr. England.
Appreciate your presentation, and definitely we have a need for more affordable housing in the county. But would you agree that there can be a time where we condense too much affordable housing into one area, and that's also not healthy for the community?
I think you always are at an advantage, both the folks who live in communities and the community itself, when we have mixed income communities. whether those are naturally occurring or not. I think there's a significant difference when people talk about a concentration of poverty versus a mixture of incomes, and even when we're talking about affordable housing. Because when we are talking, typically when we're talking about affordable housing, oftentimes we're talking about housing that's for folks at 60% of area median income, 80% of median income. Those are not people in poverty. Those are people who get up every day and go to work, or they're seniors on fixed income. And I think there's a marked difference between the challenges that come from concentrated poverty versus a mix of incomes, or even if you have communities that really serve the needs of folks at 60 or 80% of AMI. It's just vastly different challenges when you concentrate poverty, which we all know now, and looking at the rearview mirror, is not the best public policy. And I think we're making strides on that. But again, the goal is to give everybody an opportunity to live in communities of opportunity, and that means affordable housing throughout the jurisdiction.
So if you had multiple developments that were at 30, 40, 50, or even 50, 60, 70, and they were concentrated together, you would agree that that would probably not be a good mix if there's not a significant number of other developments that have no income cap on them in the same area, correct?
No, not necessarily. I think it depends on the quality of the product. I think it depends on the provision of services to the product. It depends on property management. If you had 8 Winchester Greens, and I don't know if my sister in crime is still here, she is. If you had 8 Winchester Greens stretched side by side, I would tell you that that'd be just fine all day long because of the quality of the construction, because of the ownership, because of the property management, and because of the ability to deliver services to the residents of the community. So I think it's about quality construction, it's about ownership, it's about management, it's about commitment to the community. And I also know that if you look across the region, to get market rate investment in communities, I think Greta used the word of evolving communities, you often have to have nonprofit development or mixed income development that goes in and seeds the market rate development. If you think about Churchill, think about Manchester, think about the Jeff Davis corridor, it's really been the nonprofit community coming in with really strong quality construction that's made the banking community go, oh, we can invest in that corridor. And then the private sector has said, hey, I think there's something great going on in that corridor. I want to join that energy. But time and time again, it takes often the nonprofit community or developers who are willing to take a chance that then seeds the market rate rooftops.
Thank you.
Well said. Thank you. Excellent explanation. I appreciate that because it's an issue I've thought about for years.
Yes, sir.
As I've worked throughout the region. And I used to be on the board at Gipling Court, for example, with Senator, then Mayor, before Mayor, Tim Gain. We served on the board at Gipling Court together. And so I appreciate your sharing that. First of all, thank you so much for the information. Again, we look forward to your working with us as we can continue to look at ways to drive down costs regarding what we can do with regard to our zoning and any other issues you think we can do. Let us know. We're ready to act. As my colleague said, my vice chair said, we're ready to act and make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all.